Ireland is pretty much well known for being very green, having clovers, and a lot of people associate Ireland with leprechauns. So, what's the history? What's the reason for those common ideas?
Yeah, I mean, like the green is.
What's good, y'all? Welcome back to another episode. As you see, the green and St. Patrick's Day has passed. We are recording holidays around the world, specifically in Ireland, and to the guests, and we have a special guest to the side of us. So let's have him introduce himself. So, who are you?
Yeah, my name's Connor. Connor McCarthy. I'm an Irishman myself. I'm from Ireland. I'm from Cork. I'm a student. I'm a medical student. So it was a little rough trying to set up this meeting podcast in between like me trying to get out of the lab and the time zone difference. But yeah, it's been. I'm glad to be here, and glad to chat with Mario. Glad to be able to talk to you guys about a little bit Irish holidays and Irish culture and stuff.
There we go. And the first thing specifically with Ireland and wearing green, green's my favorite color too. Ireland is pretty much well known for being very green, having clovers, and a lot of people associate Ireland with leprechauns. So, what's the history? What's the reason for those common ideas?
Yeah, I mean like the green's pretty self-evident. I mean, like you've been to Ireland, man. And I mean, no, it's dark outside. I can't pull my laptop over to the window, but it's a really green country. It's something that you don't really realize until you leave here. Like I don't know. I remember when I was like a kid and like my family would maybe go on holidays sometimes to like other parts of Europe. And you know, you'd be kind of amazed at like how brown some of the grass and some of the vegetation and trees are because you get used to just how green the place is. And it's not an exaggeration. And we just kind of we got the color, we got the national colors, kind of playing into that as well a bit. The whole kind of leprechaun thing, I don't like. I don't. It's not like I have a personal like insight into like the background of the whole myth or whatever. I feel like the image of the Irish leprechaun of like this short guy, balding, ginger hair, beard, whatever, is kind of like a caricature, like a caricature of Irish people as a whole. Like it looks similar to like the traditional. Like, look, we don't have Lucky Charms here in Ireland. That's one thing that Americans sometimes ask me, like, "Oh, I don't, you guys don't have Lucky Charms here. I would have thought they'd be like made in Ireland." It's like, no, they don't exist in this side of the pond. But if you look at like the front of the box, and you look at the little fella there, and then you look at some of the propaganda pieces popping up in British newspapers sometime around the turn of the 20th century about like Irish independence, Irish home rule, and caricatures of Irish people, you start to see a lot of resemblances. It's like it's the simultaneously very tricky and tricksy and very also unintelligent somehow at the same time. Um, and the ginger and the green and the fight and the fighting and whatever else. Like I'm gonna be honest, there's a certain amount of that's accurate. We do have a lot of redheaded people here. Green, the country is pretty green, etc. But I think overall, like the modern image of the leprechaun is this kind of weird mix of um, a little bit of history and myth and a lot of like harmful propaganda turned into a kind of a frankly pretty profitable caricature. Like you see you see the leprechaun in places outside of Ireland, but you see a lot of it in tourist shops in Ireland who make a killing off of selling this kind of image to tourists. So you know we do okay with it. I'm not complaining about it too much. But in terms of the origin, as far as near as I can tell, that's kind of where the modern image seems to come from.
Interesting, interesting. And you're definitely right about that. I remember when I visit Ireland, so many shops. There was green, clovers, leprechauns, and then an interesting one was sheep.
A lot of sheep. There's a lot of sheep around the country. A lot of very mountainous terrain out like the western half of the country, and like you can't raise cows out there. You can't really raise pigs out there. You can raise sheep on like damn near any kind of land, any kind of rocky, like scrubby, like heather, whatever. Um, you can like raise sheep out there. So that's what people tended to do.
Interesting. And I feel like there's a lot of benefits to having sheep too. I'm assuming you have the traditional shaving the sheep's wool and then you can make fabric or whatever you would
Yeah,
use for
there's
that.
like fabric, like wool traditionally, like woolen jumpers, like the very traditional kind of Aran Island jumpers from the west of Ireland, which have kind of sprung up in popularity very recently, or in the last. When I say very recently, I mean the last decade or so. But yeah, the kind of there's it's a resource we have a lot of, or it's a resource that historically as a country we used to have a lot of, um, because we didn't have the opportunity for much else, or we didn't have much else, and that's kind of a common theme among like Irish culture is this is what we had at the time. Like when you look at traditional Irish food is not hugely appealing, especially to look at. Some of it's really nice to taste, but really unappealing to look at. Um, I have a housemate who like cooks really late at night. Frankly, he's probably going to start cooking during the course of this interview, and that's almost certainly him whistling in the background if you can hear that. But it's this, every like once a week, the guy makes a stew, and it's potatoes, it's carrots, it's like stewing beef, it's low quality beef, or it's lamb, or it's something else, and it's cabbage, and all of the stuff is like what we had left over. There wasn't wheat, there wasn't grain. Like we had pretty poor quality wheat in this country, and pretty poor quality with low amounts of gluten. And that's why like the bread kind of wouldn't rise as much. So we needed to make a bread that would function without a lot of gluten in it, which is why you have Irish soda bread. And that uses kind of alternate mechanisms to work and to rise and to still taste good. But a lot of our culture and a lot of our kind of food and stuff is this is what we had at the time. We did something with it, you know.
It's almost like it's leftovers, though it's survival leftovers.
Yeah, yeah. It's and yeah, whether that is the wool or the the food or the music. I mean, you don't see a lot of like a lot of the traditional Irish music. Like people think of the fiddle, sure, but a lot of the really traditional Irish instruments are like the bodhrán, the kind of single sticked handheld drum that's made with lambskin stretched over a wooden frame, or the like the tin whistle, this kind of familiar to every Irish school child, this like brass or tin like it looks a little like a recorder, but it's kind of smaller and thinner and is usually keyed into a specific note. Like those are the real like foundations of Irish music. You don't see a lot of Irish piano concertos in history because we didn't have that. We didn't have the resources for that. We didn't, as a country, have like a class where people had pianos in their homes for most of our history.
Yeah,
So it does it kind of comes across in a lot of different ways.
interesting. And I think too, if I remember correctly, learning from like history of Ireland, that Ireland has been taken over by a bunch of different people. So it was under many different rulerships. So the amount of stuff that y'all received, I feel like the same time you also lost as well, just from people who took over y'all's country.
Sure. I mean, like the main. I mean, like God, a lot of the history is um, not as well known, or it kind of you go back to like the British kind of started coming in en masse somewhere around like 800 odd years ago, but with the plantations and the like. But the before that, yeah, you had a lot of different like the French or the Celts or whatever, but a lot of that history isn't recorded. Or is recorded very sparsely, or is recorded only in oral tradition. But yeah, by and large, it was the Brits.
When in doubt, the Brits.
When in doubt, the Brits. Yes.
That's funny. Moving away from blaming the Brits,
Sure.
what would you say is a common holiday that a typical Irish folk would celebrate?
So obviously, St. Patrick's Day is a big one. It's just gone by, only like last week, and it's obviously it's celebrated all over the world, and a lot of places seem to like go real crazy for it, like even more so than we do. Like the whole like you don't see any rivers in Ireland being dyed green. That doesn't happen. Like that's not a thing here. Um, or the big green lights over the Sydney Opera House, the Eiffel Tower, whatever else. It's a nice one. It's a big one to celebrate abroad, but it's big celebrated at home too. Like everybody goes out for it. Everybody celebrates in some way. Um, so St. Patrick's is like the really like the obvious like the poster boy of Irish holidays. Um, but you see like there's a lot of other ones in around the same time. Only like a little while back was St. Bridget's Day, another patron saint of Ireland who um, is her day was only recently made a bank holiday, like a national holiday this year, or could this year, last year maybe. Um, but a lot of Irish people would celebrate that, but it's not seen as big overseas. Is St. Bridget's Day.
It's pretty interesting. Interesting. And St. Bridget's, I'm a little rusty on my Catholicism. St.
Mm.
Bridget's, was that a saint that helped out St. Patrick, or
She, I believe, she worked with him to some degree. I believe they were connected to some degree. But most of the stories I remember about her were are like featuring her own kind of central things, like the St. Bridget's cross being woven out of reeds, or um, the the famous story of her like taking off her cloak. She was being granted land to build a church, and the local noble or whatever it said that she could have as much as she had on the ground when she put her cloak down. And so she whipped off her cloak and threw it on the ground, and magically it grew to cover like an acre or more. And she received that land instead. Something crazy like that. I believe there was some kind of crossover episode between the two of them, but I can't remember the details.
no worries, no worries. That's pretty interesting. Just going back on the Catholicism and just a lot of traditions. I remember we talked earlier that a lot of holidays that are still celebrated fall back on Catholicism traditions.
Yeah. No, absolutely. A lot of the ones, like, I mean, we said St. Patrick's, we said St. Bridget's, but a lot of the other ones fall back on Catholicism as well. Like, we've got Easter coming up, and that's celebrated with, like, you've got your Good Friday is a pretty much a day off. I think you got the Saturday, Sunday, Easter Monday is usually a day off. The Good Friday, like that around that time is usually important to Irish people as well because of the Good Friday Agreement and the kind of the ending of the Troubles in Northern Ireland, which people talk about that like it's ancient history, but it wasn't that long ago. Like my mother grew up not far from the border, and she remembers like bombs going off. She was on the Irish side of the border, but she remembers there being like real scares about bombs in her town or about like going on like a visit to somewhere or over the border and there being a real concern for her safety. And she's not that old or anything. It wasn't that long ago. Yeah, so that's Easter. That's kind of the Good Friday and that kind of time. Christmas is obviously still a big one. Like um, we again, like the Irish population is still either is Catholic or used to be Catholic or was raised Catholic or went to a Catholic primary school kind of thing. And there's a lot of that is falling out of favor. And there's now like a large number of people in Ireland who self-identify as an atheist or who we've obviously got like a growing Muslim population, stuff like that. But Christmas is still celebrated like really widely here, which is great. Love Christmas, love the vibes. Um, but again, big classic ones. Halloween, of course, is big thing here. It's obviously originally an Irish holiday. I'm not sure if you guys knew that, but it is originally Halloween, like All Hallows Eve, is originally Icha Hawan, the Eve of Samhain, and it was an Irish tradition to put out like sweet cakes and milk or whatever on gravestones as an offering on the eve of Samhain, on the eve of that month. So Samhain being October? Yeah, no, man for there for Samhain. I think October. Trying to revise like the months of the year in my head in Irish. I don't speak it well enough for this, but yeah, it's that's an Irish tradition, and that one's like grown to blow up worldwide. Um, in the same way as St. Patrick's Day has, but very different to St. Patrick's Day. Obviously, St. Patrick's Day is massively associated with Ireland, but the modern Halloween is definitely more associated with just like the States, I guess.
Interesting. And with Halloween, Hallows Eve, I remember when I went to a Catholic school, there was
Mhm.
all Halloween, All Saints Day, and All Souls Day. Is that a thing that's celebrated in Ireland as well, or not
The
so
words,
much?
the words All Saints Day ring a bell in my head, but I can't remember ever celebrating it specifically or anything like that. There's probably some, I probably read something about it in primary school a long time ago, but yeah,
It's not a big, well, depends on who you ask. Not
Mhm.
a worldly celebrated thing in the States because not everyone is Catholic. It's
Sure, sure.
highly the Catholic holiday to be celebrated.
Hmm.
Mm. With that, adding holidays and talking about holidays, what would you say is a holiday that should be added or should be more recognized?
Honestly, it's a, it's kind of a weird, it's kind of a shame. It's kind of a weird thing. It does make sense, but it kind of then again it doesn't. That we don't have like an Independence Day,
Mhm.
and part of that is because like we and this is where things get controversial. Things get a tad political, but we as a country never received full independence. Like we there are still six counties that never received independence from Britain, and whether those six counties are going to rejoin or whether the people in those counties want to rejoin is a whole massive quagmire of issue that I will not be getting into today. But you got to realize at the time that the treaty was drawn up, the Free State Treaty, the Treaty of Independence, around that time, the partition was only ever intended to be a temporary measure. There was only ever intended to be like, okay, hold on, while the Free State gets up and running, let's just draw a line around a couple of these counties and keep them here, and let's kind of keep people happy, and let's let's leave it as it is,
Mhm.
um, for the moment. And then it just kind of stayed. So there was never any big fanfare. There was never any big thing. We still don't have like a dedicated like Independence Day as such. Like the closest thing we might have is like, I don't know, like the we had a thing back in 2016 for the Easter Rising, for the 1916 Rising, which
Mhm.
was kind of the start of the kind of the spark that sparked um the independence movement that later became, that later grew into the Irish Republican Army, like the original one, and the Irish Republican Brotherhood, and grew to the creation of the Irish Free State, and that was recognized on its like centenary. But like the Irish Free State came into being on December 6th in 1922, but we don't celebrate anything on December 6th. You just like go to work or you chill on if it's a weekend or whatever. But there's nothing that like really gets celebrated. And I think it would be nice to have like a dedicated Independence Day, but I also understand why we don't have one. Like that we never really we never had that massive euphoric moment of like, oh my goodness, we're fully independent. We're like, we did it, we got out. Because, even after that treaty was signed, the country then embroiled in an absolutely bloody civil war, which to a certain extent, still divides the country, still divides a lot of the politics in the country. Um, but we were kind of a little too busy dealing with that than to celebrate what we did have, or rather, well, that was kind of that was the reason Civil War happened. As one side was going, listen, we have this. This is a massive stepping stone to independence, and the other half going, no, we came for the whole pie, or none of it. Either we get the whole thing, or we don't stop fighting. And that's what led to the Civil War in the first place. But so again, I understand why we don't have the Independence Day, but I think it'd be nice to have it like recognized formally.
Definitely, yeah. It's interesting to think of it in that way. In America, we have Fourth of July. For someone who's Native American and we've lost our land to Europeans, it feels
Sure,
weird
yeah.
it feels weird to celebrate that independence. Though at the same time,
Mhm.
we move if Europeans never took over this land, there's a lot of things that may or may not have ever happened. So it's like good thing and a bad thing. And
Oh,
it's like, how do you celebrate it? But that's interesting in Ireland that it's not fully independent from England or from Britain.
yeah.
And I remember when we went to Belfast, I think Glendalough was another city up there, that
Yeah.
the currency was different, that it went from euros to, I'm sorry, it went from pounds to euros.
Mhm. Like,
So
because pound sterling being used up in Northern Ireland because it's still part of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Which, I mean, the name is a bit of a scam. If you've got to put in the United Kingdom of Great Britain and then tack and Northern Ireland on there, I mean, like, come on, lads.
it's like, what are you guys,
You know there's something wrong there.
it's like, what are you guys doing?
What are you playing at?
Honestly. With that, we're jumping to our last question with holidays that are less relevant or should not really be a holiday.
Ooh.
I feel like this one could be like even a personal taste too.
Hmm. That's a really good question. Like taking one out, taking one down. Um, Honestly, like, look, everybody loves the week off for school. Every school child loves the week off and loves the time off. But like, I don't know. I feel like Easter as a big thing in this country is just like it's either got to go or it's got to like start moving on the way out because just the fact is we're not like a hugely Catholic country anymore. It used to be something we were known for, like internationally, like, but we're just not anymore. We don't have that much that a huge population of Catholics. Again, a lot of people are, but even the ones that self-identify as Catholic in the census, like most people don't go to mass. Like the mass attendance in this country is constantly on this like massive downhill trend. Um, that people show up at Christmas and people show up at Easter, and that's kind of it. Like, and I don't know. I feel like Easter could do with like a little less recognition. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I don't think we celebrate too many major holidays in the country. There's nothing like major that I'd really like to see taken out or taken down a peg. Easter may be the closest one, but honestly, yeah, there's not a lot to chip away at.
That's pretty good. It's interesting with Easter that you mentioned that kind of going with that topic that back then Catholicism, a lot of your holidays were celebrated with Catholicism, and now a lot of people are just going to church on Sunday and Easter. Your typical, you say, it's stereotypical
My
Catholic.
brother and Chris, people aren't even going to church on Sundays. It's like Christmas and Easter. It is like it's you go 2 days a year. You write down Catholic on the census and then you go to church 2 days. I know like the majority of like the people I know, or at least like the people I know of like my parents' generation at the very least, are like that. Like I'm sure my mother still writes down Catholic as like her thing on her form, and the woman goes to mass once, maybe twice, maybe three times in a year if she's going for some like special occasion outside of like weddings and stuff like that where you show up. But like no, it's the fact that it's not even like, oh, you only go to church on Sundays. It's like most people don't even go on the Sunday. It's just the twice a year thing. So we're really falling out of it as a country. And I don't even know the statistics for how many people are like practicing Catholics. I'll I mean we can look into those. We can look those up. But I would say it's an awful lot less than the number of people that ticked Catholic in the last census.
Interesting. Interesting. We got to look that up sometime soon.
For
And
sure,
then
for sure.
there's one more thing I remember you mentioned when we were talking. You said Pancake Tuesday. Is that similar to Taco Tuesday in the United States, or
Pancake Tuesday. Do you guys not have Pancake Tuesday over there?
unfortunately, I've never heard that before.
Oh my god. All right. So this is in relation to this is another thing in relation to Easter, right? So in the 40 days before Easter, this is once again we are back to Catholicism. So as with like it's impossible to separate this from like an episode in holidays in Ireland and Catholicism. They go hand in hand. So in the 40 days before Easter are known in Catholicism as Lent. So it's the time where before Jesus' crucifixion, where he went wandering through the desert 40 days, 40 nights, um, apparently like depriving himself of everything, of like food, water, rest, whatever, like a period of like cleansing suffering. Catholics are all about suffering, cleansing, so cleansing your soul and stuff like that, which is an interesting attitude. But that's still done. You still a lot of people in this country still like give up something for Lent. Oh, I'm giving up chocolate and sweets for Lent, or I'm going to give up. I'm going to use this time to try and give up smoking, or I'm going to give up coffee for Lent. And sometimes it's a lifestyle change. Sometimes it's something that is brought back once Easter rolls around again. But and sometimes it's not even a giving up; it's more like a lifestyle thing. That people are like, I'm going to walk more. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do a kilometer every day or 2 kilometers every day, whatever. Um, but traditionally, it was very much a time of like piety and like sacrifice and suffering, giving stuff up. So traditionally, since Easter's always on a Sunday, if you count back 40 days, you're always going to land on a Wednesday as being the first day of Lent, which is Ash Wednesday, just when you get like, again, I'm not sure like if you guys have that in the States, but it's another day where a lot of people go to mass or whatever, or they don't even go to mass. Like sometimes they'll just bring it around, and they get like ashes smeared in their foreheads and like kind of
Right.
a wonky looking cross. So that's Ash Wednesday. Count back 40 days, and you count back one more day to the day before Lent, where you have to give up all your stuff tomorrow. You know that tomorrow's the first day of Lent, and like it is. No, it is 1955 Ireland. Tomorrow was the first day of Lent. You are not eating like meat for 40 days. You're not eating like good stuff. You are being
Just
cleansed.
indulging
You're
all
being
that.
pious. So yeah, exactly. So Pancake Tuesday, Shrove Tuesday was the day where you used up all that stuff. Where you like
Mm.
essentially had a little bit of like a pantry like blowout, and you kind of you went, yeah, let's use the stuff. Let's use the meat. Let's use the eggs, the flour, the milk, like all that kind of stuff. Um, let's use the stuff because again, like I'm saying this like, oh, let's use up the flour like it's a big deal. It was a big deal back then, like because we didn't have a lot of like growing. We didn't grow a lot of wheat in this country. We still don't. Um, so using that stuff up and making like pancakes from it, making the kind of tradition kind of eventually then kind of grew adapted a bit to being focused around the pancakes themselves of a you used up your stuff and originally, but now it's, oh, let's make pancakes this Tuesday, every year. So
Mm.
a lot of shops will do like promotional stuff for it, like they'll sell stuff in packages or they'll sell deals and stuff. Um, and even a lot of restaurants or a lot of like I remember like in my school canteen there was always Pancake Tuesday. There was always pancakes on the was the only thing they were selling that day, just because it was just good vibes. And normally every year I try and make a point of having a few friends over and like cooking pancakes for them because I enjoy it. This year I wasn't able to because I was stuck in my surgical rotation and I was like out of the house by like I had to be in the hospital before 7:30 every morning because
Jeez,
that's
that's a
when that's
lot.
when that's when stuff started. That was for a month. So yeah, my normal thing of like, let's blow off the first lecture of the day. It's only one day. Let's cook pancakes. Me and all my friends didn't pan out so much. But that's where Pancake Tuesday kind of comes from. It's a big. It's not like a national holiday or anything, but it's a fun thing that everyone observes. It's good vibes. Um, and I'm not talking about the American style like um, little thick pancakes that you like stack high and cover in syrup and butter. These tend to be like the much wider, more like crepe style pancakes. Um, what do you put in your own pancakes, Mario?
I probably, besides just regular American pancakes, I would add peanut butter on it. If not, I just like it nice and fluffy.
That's fair. It's a very American answer. God, I tend to I put on like a little bit of sugar and then I just drown it in lemon juice. Just like it's lemon and sugar, but it's a lot of lemon juice on balance. And I don't know, it's good. It speaks to me. But a lot of people like to put on like popular Pancake Tuesday or like some Nutella or like honey or like some people go all out and they start putting like fancier stuff or like savory stuff. Like I know a guy who like cooks up bacon to kind of crisp up, do it really well, and put that in his.
Interesting.
And yeah, no, Pancake Tuesday is just a fun little thing really nowadays. That's a part of Easter I'd be very willing to kind of keep holding over.
That's funny. It's now that you mention it, like it's before Ash Wednesday. Over here, at least in the west side, we call it Fat Tuesday. So it's
Ah,
same exact thing, except not too much on pancakes, sadly. We got to switch it to Pancake Tuesday.
okay. So what are you doing like on Fat Tuesday? What's the
On Fat Tuesday, very similar to y'all, where it's we have 40 days to fast or give up something to quote unquote get closer to God. So some
Hmm.
people refrain from eating sweets, from cursing, from being on the cell phone too much. So on Tuesday, which is the day before Ash Wednesday, we would pretty much, it's the last day that we're going to be indulging in this thing we're giving up. And then those 40 days, we would
Hmm.
supposedly give it up.
Oh, so it's like a day for just like indulgences in general. It's not like a specific pancake themed. Yeah, you got to get on that, man. Pancakes are great.
We got it. We got it. We're gonna be cultured by the Irish.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So if that made you guys hungry, go get some pancakes. And if you guys learn
Definitely.
something new, high five the person next to you. And if you're interested in learning more about Irish culture or any other culture, go check it out. Talk to a neighbor, meet someone new. The world is huge and it gets smaller and smaller the more you get knowledgeable about
Mm.
each culture.
Absolutely.
But yeah, as always, remember, guys, pass a smile, stay safe, always be awesome, and we'll see you guys next episode. Sweet.